Kujirai Reiko is in her 30s and lives in the Kowloon walled city. She works at the Wanglai Real Estate Agency, somewhere in China. Kujirai has a very easygoing personality and enjoys both smoking and eating watermelons. She isn't scared to speak her mind or accept her own feelings. Being very comfortable, walks around her old apartment and begins to cut her breakfast, being watermelon her favorite fruit. Then goes to her balcony to take a smoke. Afterwards, she puts the leftovers in the fridge and changes to go to work and lock her door. As she walks to work, the city is shown to begin preparing their products to sell in high spirits. Above the city, a octahedron-like object hovers ominously. The scene shifts to the offices of the Wanglai Real Estate Agency, where Kujirai works for. She greets her senior colleague, who is already there. He remarks with a teasing tone that her arrival is uncharacteristically late, and she had better hurry to clock in before she is officially marked tardy like someone he knows, a clear reference to another employee. Kujirai is about to lock in when the loudmouth Hajime Kudo rushes to the time clock and successfully punches in just in the nick of time, breathing a sigh of relief. But this interruption marks her a minute late. A moment later, she hands Kudo a list of new property listings that came in that day. As he takes it, he notices her face and asks what's wrong. She casually mentions that she was late and that someone else had punched his time card before her. Kujirai tries to ignore it, but she keeps bringing it up, with her calling him childish for cutting in line, which she thinks is an immature thing to do. Kudo, having enough of her scolding him, dismisses her complaint by promising to treat her to lunch as compensation, with the woman smiling at the victory. The boss, knowing about the list she gave him, is confused by the second sector properties that has become vacant again, speculating that it must be in poor condition, but yet it's still in high demand. For the second time, Reiko takes her glasses off and pinches her nose, having some sort of problem. Later, Kudo and Kujirai walk through the bustling streets of Kowloon on their way to lunch. Being a Hawaiian-themed cafe, with Kudo not pleased with her choice, Kujirai points the place out as a new restaurant that has just opened, its promotional flyer having piqued her interest. She expresses a desire to try it, noting how delicious everything on the menu looks. Kudo, however, curtly dismisses the idea and insists they go to their usual spot, being the Tin Tin Eatery, an old-fashioned eatery with familiar customer service. Kudo enthusiastically praises their meal, a bowl of wonton soup, but soon he notices Reiko's face asking what's wrong. She reminds him about the other place, wanting to eat there. Kudo calls her an idiot, handing her a bite of his soup, asking Kujirai if she cannot feel the righteousness in its gleaming golden broth and the plump dumplings floating within. Kujirai, however, is distracted. She complains that her glasses have felt off since the morning, blurring her vision. She takes out a small bottle of eye drops and applies them. Kudo notices the brand, identifying it as a Habenuma Pharmaceuticals product. He expresses his distrust for the company, stating that it has become less reliable ever since the founder's son took over as president. He points out a nearby advertisement for the Habenuma Beauty Center, calling its director, the same son, a shady character. Kudo then scoffs at the need for eye drops, claiming that eye strain can be easily cured by pressing the right pressure points. He offers to do it for her, but Kujirai quickly refuses. She explains her reasoning with a mix of politeness and bluntness, stating that he would surely use too much force and calls him a gorilla. Then two get into an argument, with it only being solved when a plate of stir-fried water spinach is brought to the table. Their conversation turns back to work. Kujirai brings up a specific vacant property, room 205 in the Sayoro apartment building, noting that it has been unoccupied for half a year. Kudo explains that it is a difficult property to rent, as it has no air conditioning and is scorched by the intense afternoon sun, making it suitable only for a very peculiar type of tenant. He adds that the interior is quite old and dilapidated, though a fresh coat of paint might improve its appearance. This prompts Kujirai to recall seeing Kudo recently fixing a door at another apartment building on Nam Kang Street. Kudo explains his reasoning. In Kowloon, where most buildings are old, calling a professional for every minor issue would annoy the landlords. He prefers to handle small repairs himself, as he wants to make the living conditions for the tenants as comfortable as possible, saying so in a softer tone. As they finish their meal, Reiko feels she might have said something wrong, as they're not side to side. Kujirai notes that they still have time left in their lunch break and tentatively suggests they go for tea somewhere. Kudo, in a gruff but caring manner, dismisses her suggestion. He tells her she should use the time to go to an optometrist to get her glasses checked, calling her a dummy for putting up with blurry vision. He then softens his tone slightly, promising they can have tea another time. Next, Kudo plays with the local kids, and she's reminded by if she likes the man. Following his advice, Kujirai visits an optometrist. The examination reveals a surprising result. Her eyesight has significantly improved in both eyes to a perfect 20/20 vision. The boss remarks that she looks better without her glasses. The boss then asks Kudo on his opinion, and he says he prefets the glasses. The two are later seen on a rooftop burning old material on the furnace. While Kudo is stretching, he sees Spades. The massive, half-finished structure of generic Terra looms in the distance. Kudo voices his opposition to the project, calling it a cheap imitation, a Pachimon of Earth, and complains that his tax money is being used to build it, and the two have a smoke break. Kujirai then points to the new restaurant she had wanted to try earlier, wondering aloud how long it will last. She observes that new businesses in Kowloon seem to fail quickly. This leads Kudo to share his personal philosophy about the city. He believes Kowloon should be a place steeped in nostalgia, a place of fraying traditions, musty air, and noisy neighbors. He argues that all these elements evoke a powerful sense of nostalgia, a feeling he equates to being in love. He claims that the residents of Kowloon are all in love with the city's unchanging nature. Therefore, he concludes Kowloon must not change. It has no need for new things. Kujirai listens to his speech and then offers a quiet counterpoint. She tells him that she does not feel any particular nostalgia for the city itself. Then, after a slight pause, she adds that she sometimes feels that sense of nostalgia for him. As she says this, Kudo's eyes flicker. Reiko soon apologizes for saying it like that, as she made it sound weird. But in the next instant, Kudo is in front of her, leaning in close. As the noisy city can be heard in the background, it looks like she's getting her happy ending, but Kudo notices a small wrinkle forming at the corner of her eye, saying she has crow feet. The next day at the office, Kujirai is wearing glasses again. When the boss questions why she'd do this, since her vision has improved, she explains that they are non-prescription, meaning they're fake. She feels unaccustomed to her own face without glasses and plans to gradually stop wearing them. Kudo teases her, accusing her of wearing the glasses to hide the wrinkles he spotted the day before, calling it a futile struggle against aging, as she's 32 now. Kujirai is pissed and retorts by pointing out a smudge on his shirt cuff. Kudo looks down and explains that it is because of a personal habit, a sort of self-imposed rule. He has a compulsion to touch the faded numbers he sees painted on the walls as he walks through Kowloon. That night, as Kudo is preparing to leave work to clock out, he asks how much longer she's going to stay. She tells him he can leave without her, as she's planning to work a bit longer. Kudo turns off the light and tells her to hurry up. He's taking her out to dinner. With that, the two clock out. They walk away from their usual streets, making Reiko worry about where they're going. But her eyes soon light up as they reach Sunset Avenue, a place he calls the essence of Kowloon. He leads her on a whirlwind tour of various local food stalls and eateries. Meat buns, tricolor candy, noodle dishes, dumpling soup. They eat and drink until Kujirai protests that she cannot take another bite. For their final stop, Kudo chooses a quiet, dimly lit cafe called the Goldfish Tea House. The waitress greets Kudo warmly, clearly familiar with him. Kujirai has never seen a display of goldfish windows like this. It's the nicest place she's been to in the city. He orders 2 iced coffees. As a complimentary service, the waitress brings them a plate of sliced watermelon, remarking that this year's crop is especially sweet and delicious. Kujirai, despite her earlier claims of being full, eagerly eats the watermelon. Kudo observes this with an amused expression. She explains that since watermelon is mostly water, it counts as a beverage. A moment later, a look of familiarity crosses her face, and she says she feels a sense of nostalgia again. After finishing her slice, she shares a personal quirk with Kudo. She finds that smoking a cigarette right after eating watermelon is particularly delicious. Kudo's reaction is one of surprise and recognition. He tells her that he once knew someone else who used to say the exact same thing. He muses that knowing someone's unique habits is a nice thing. It makes you happy when you encounter the same habit in someone else, and it helps you remember the person who had it. As they leave the cafe, the friendly waitress thanks them for coming and expresses her happiness at seeing Kudo bring his girlfriend to the cafe again. Kujirai is taken aback by the assumption, but Kudo quickly hustles her out the door. Once outside, Kujirai asks him why he didn't correct the mistake. She points out that it could be awkward for him if he brings his actual girlfriend to the cafe in the future. Kudo dismisses her concern, telling her not to worry about it, then gifts her a goldfish after she notices the octahedron-like object hovering above her. Later that night, in her own apartment, Kujirai reflects on the day's events. Kudo's words about remembering people through their habits echo in her mind. The next day, an official announcement from the Kowloon Environmental Management Center blares through the city's loudspeakers, warning of a photochemical smog alert and high temperatures, advising citizens to avoid outdoor activities. Inspired by Kudo's dedication to improving the tenants' living conditions, Kujirai goes to the vacant room 205 in the Sayoro building. With a can of paint and a roller, she begins to paint the stained walls herself. The blazing heat makes even the fan and bottles of cold water useless. She tells herself she's doing this to make the space more comfortable for the next resident, echoing Kudo's words. She manages to paint nearly all the walls with only one left, but she starts to lose consciousness. Just as it seems she'll collapse and hit the floor, Kudo arrives in time to catch her. Kudo shows up fashionably late. He jokes that a hero is supposed to be late. He asks her why she didn't tell him she was going to do this. When Reiko tells Kudo she wanted to make the apartment more comfortable for tenants, he grins, asking if his influence is rubbing off on her, flashing a goofy smile. Not wanting to ruin her progress, Kudo starts painting the last wall for her. As she sits there in the half-painted room, Kujirai has a moment of profound realization. She is in love with this man. Filled with a new sense of purpose, she later tries to find the cafe they visited, but it is nowhere to be found, as if it vanished. Back at the office, Kujirai finds Kudo asleep, slumped on a waiting couch. She tries to wake him gently, but he remains unconscious. As she calls his name, the scene is overlaid with a dreamlike filter. A different woman's voice is heard, tenderly trying to wake Kudo. In a surge of drunk sleepfulness, he grabs Kujirai's face and deeply kisses her. She tries to pull away as she runs out of breath. Eventually, Kudo wakes up, still groggy, and shoves her off him. Reiko is stunned, cheeks flushed red, panting for breath. She waits for him to say something. Kudo gets up as if nothing happened and walks to his desk, but he stops and apologizes, saying he mistook her for someone else. Later, the two finish their work. Kudo complains about not having lunch and announces he's going out to eat, telling Kujirai she can head home without him. Left alone in the quiet office, Kujirai feels a surge of frustration, feeling foolish for being the only one seemingly affected by their interactions, while Kudo seems completely oblivious to her inner turmoil. As she hears some papers fall off his desk, she begins to tidy Kudo's perpetually messy space, muttering about his habit of leaving things in disarray. She notices a drawer left slightly ajar and finds a photograph inside. In it, Kudo is with another woman. Jealousy rises in her chest for the woman held so gently by him. She grabs the photo and is shocked. The woman in the picture bears a striking, almost identical resemblance to Kujirai herself. Something shifts in her. She begins to walk the streets of Sunset Avenue, though she strangely can't remember this place existing before today. She ends up at the Goldfish Tea House and orders an iced coffee. When the waiter passes by, she shows him the picture and asks about it. He remarks that he remembers taking it to celebrate her engagement to Kudo-san. Her reality begins to shatter. The goldfish, the image of the cafe begins to dissolve, and Kujirai is left questioning, who is this woman? Kujirai had just finished speaking with the waiter at the restaurant, but left with more questions, as the man confirmed the validity of the photograph she had taken. Before she could process what it all meant, she received a frantic phone call. Xiaohei, a resident of one of the apartment complexes she manages, called to complain about a persistent, loud noise coming from a neighboring unit in the Southeast District every night. True to her role as a responsible property manager, Reiko agreed to investigate. From outside, it sounded like someone was having a gunfight, with the constant noise of what seemed like shells hitting the walls. Reiko rang the doorbell a few times and eventually got a response. But instead of a person, a wall of cute cat plush dolls burst out, followed by a flustered woman pleading for more time on a deadline. The woman, startled to see a stranger instead of her boss, looked up to find Reiko, someone she'd never seen before. Inside the apartment, the woman, Yaomei, panicked at Reiko's presence, assuming she'd missed a work deadline. She explained frantically that she still had 50 more figures to complete. Reiko, however, wasn't there about the noise. Noticing Reiko's distressed expression, Yaomei assumed she was sick and offered her painkillers. Reiko declined and, feeling she had no one else to confide in, ended up trauma-dumping her entire situation on a complete stranger. Yeah, not ideal, but here we are. She explained her bewildering dilemma. The woman in the photo was undeniably her, yet she had no memory of it being taken or of ever being romantically involved with Kudo. The confession deepened as she revealed the terrifying truth she had only just realized. Her amnesia was total. It wasn't just the day of the photo that was missing. Her entire past was gone. She couldn't recall anything about her life before arriving in Kowloon. Even more unsettling, Kudo had never once mentioned their supposed shared history. To her surprise, Yaomei didn't offer sympathy, but instead presented a radical perspective based on her own experience. She revealed that she had undergone extensive full-body plastic surgery, a conscious choice to erase her past and discard her former self. Her philosophy was one of self-determination. If anyone mentioned her past, she would simply deny it. She alone decided who she was. She told Reiko that there were others like them, people living without a past, and that it was entirely acceptable for Reiko to decide that the woman in the photo wasn't her. To emphasize her point, Yaomei offered Reiko a freshly baked egg tart. She explained its personal significance. It had been the first thing she ate after her final surgery, serving as a symbolic birthday cake for her new life. Sharing it with Reiko, she said, marked a joyful occasion. Reiko accepted the tart, and as she ate it, its simple, delicious flavor brought her a fleeting moment of comfort and clarity amid the chaos in her mind. Meanwhile, at the Oraichi real estate office, Kudo searched all over his desk for the photo of himself and his wife, but was unable to find it. This sparked a flashback to his first day at work. Kudo Hajime had just transferred from the Japan branch to the Kowloon branch. Reiko watched his introduction to the staff, noting that he was 30 years old, 2 years younger than her. A cheerful woman introduced herself to him as Kujirai Reiko and welcomed him warmly. As she showed him around town, she commented on the good fortune of his name, Hajime, which uses the kanji for 8. Kudo didn't see what was so special about that. She explained that the number 8 is considered lucky. The scene shifted to a lively game of mahjong with the older residents. To everyone's shock, Reiko beat all the men, using Kudo's name as a metaphor for luck, much to his amazement. Later, the two went to the Tintin Eatery. Reiko explained to Kudo that mastering mahjong was an essential skill in Kowloon. It allowed them to connect with residents, listen to their concerns, and build trust. She added that knowing the city's endless shortcuts and alleyways was just as crucial. As she listed the keys to surviving in Kowloon, she informed Kudo that he'd be having lunch with her at the same restaurant every day. When he questioned the routine and lack of variety, she passionately praised the restaurant's golden, glistening water dumplings, asking him if he couldn't feel the inherent justice in their perfection. After their meal, she gives him a cup of watermelon-flavored juice, and he admits it's delicious. He's then taken aback when she starts smoking, prompting her to question what's wrong with him. Reiko shows how much she enjoys the combination of cigarettes and watermelon, but Kudo can't agree with the taste. He then prompts Reiko to continue her list of tips for living well in Kowloon. She says the most important thing is to fall in love. Kudo is taken aback by her earnestness. Reiko elaborates, describing her own deep, nostalgic love for Kowloon itself. The flickering, dying fluorescent lights, the pervasive smell of mold in the alleyways, the scent of passing in the dense corridors. She equates this profound feeling of nostalgia with the emotion of love, declaring that she is in love with the city. Kudo, ever the pragmatist, points out that Kowloon is slated for demolition. Reiko simply states that people have been saying that for years. He muses aloud that falling in love with something destined to disappear seems like an invitation for heartbreak. The next day, Reiko meets Yaomei for lunch at a different restaurant, this one serving Hong Kong lemon chicken. The two women really enjoy the crunchy chicken. Yaomei observes that Reiko seems to be in better spirits. Reiko admits she is, but her desire to understand the truth about her past and the photograph remains. Yaomei suggests the most direct approach, ask Kudo. She points out that since Reiko isn't in love with him, there should be no reason for hesitation. Reiko's quiet, avoidant reaction tells Yaomei otherwise, that she does in fact love him. Realizing Reiko cannot bring herself to ask, Yaomei posits a theory. She suggests they label the woman in the photo Kujirai B. Given that Reiko and Kudo were supposedly engaged, it is plausible that Kujirai B is in fact Reiko, but an amnesiac version. Yaomei hypothesizes that Kudo may be deliberately hiding the truth, waiting for Reiko's memories to return naturally rather than forcing the issue and causing further psychological distress. While logical, this theory deeply troubles Reiko, casting her current self as a mere placeholder in Kudo's eyes, waiting to be replaced by the real Kujirai. Back at the office, a hungry Kudo suggests they wrap up their work and get food. Reiko suggests a new lemon chicken restaurant she knows. Kudo dismisses the idea, preferring the familiar comfort of their routine. their usual suigyoza spot. Spurred by her conversation with Yao Mei, Reiko confronts him. She reminds him that this isn't the first time she suggested a new place, only for him to take them to the Tintin Eatery. She recalls telling him that she feels a sense of nostalgia when she's with him and asks if he feels the same way about her. He stops for a moment and honestly confirms that he does. With that being said, Reiko steps closer and asks him to truly look at her, the person. She takes her glasses off in a silent testament to the woman she is right now. Kudo reaches for her face, studies it, but says he only sees her getting older with her crow's feet. This ruins the moment, and she firmly tells him she'll continue to work longer so he can eat lunch alone. With that, Kudo understands and goes out for lunch. Once he leaves and she's alone, she takes the photo of her past self and puts it back in his desk, ready to be her own person. A commercial on public television promotes the newly opened Hebanuma General Medical Center, a state-of-the-art beauty and health facility. In celebration of its advisory role in the Generic Terra redevelopment project, the center is offering free health checkups for all Kowloon residents. Reiko attends the checkup with her neighbor, Yao Mei. Yao Mei seems to have a passionate crush on Dr. Hebanuma. Reiko questions if the doctor is really that popular, but Yao Mei confirms it's true, as it's nearly impossible to book a consultation with the man. At that moment, Xiaohei runs down the hall to greet Reiko. Xiaohei is introduced to Yao Mei, and the three go to be evaluated. As they wait for their final test, a barium swallow, an announcement is made for free cosmetic surgery consultations. Yao Mei jumps on Reiko's back, agreeing to have it done right away. Reiko, who now has perfect vision, reads that they're offering double eyelids, nose jobs, lip adjustments, facelifts, and lastly, anti-aging surgery. Kudo's callous comment about her wrinkles is fresh in her mind, and Reiko immediately decides to sign up. Swept up in the excitement, Xiaohei signs up as well. Later, Kudo tries to go to his favorite restaurant, only to find out that his favorite waiter, Gwen, quit. With a new waiter starting that day, this news hits Kudo hard, and he silently walks out. Soon after, Reiko takes her friend to the Goldfish Tea House, but they leave shortly after, as they were hoping to talk to Gwen for more information about the photo, but are disappointed to learn he quit the day before. This timing seems too convenient to be a coincidence. Dejected, the two wander through a street market where a vendor tries to sell her cheap jewelry. His sales pitch reminds Reiko of Kudo's comment about her unpierced ears. Lost in thought, she's unsure whether to buy them. Yao Mei picks up an earring and comments on how it would make her look like Kujirai B from the photograph. On impulse, Reiko finds and purchases a pair of clip-on earrings that are a near-perfect match to the ones in the photo. The next morning, Reiko wears the new clip-on earrings and glasses to the office. When Kudo sees them, his reaction is one of shock and deep longing. But when she speaks, he realizes it's not her, but Reiko trying to copy her look. Reiko blushes, wanting to hear his thoughts, but they're not what she expected. He becomes instantly angry. His face darkens as he tells her to knock it off, then walks away. Stung and confused by his harsh rebuke, she goes to Yao Mei's apartment that night, deeply hurt. She wanted his attention, but not like this. Taken inside, Yao Mei talks to her. Meanwhile, Kudo sits silently in the rain, his expression a mixture of frustration and regret. That night, Reiko reflects that she and the original Kujirai B might do the same things, but where she would stand by the fan, Reiko would squat. Where Kujirai B would smoke on the balcony, Reiko would smoke on her bed. With that realization, she puts the earrings and the other woman's clothes into the closet, not planning to wear them again. Later, Reiko goes to smoke while it's raining. Kudo finds her. The moment is awkward as neither of them speaks, but finally Kudo offers a sincere apology. He admits he was irritated about something else and had unfairly taken it out on her, acknowledging that his behavior was childish. Instead of simply accepting, Reiko looks him in the eye and agrees that he was, indeed, awful. Her directness surprises him out of his apology script. As penance, she declares he must grant her the right to choose their next meal. She explains that she was deeply hurt and therefore she wants to eat lemon chicken for lunch. He agrees, but suggests they go at night so he can have a drink with the meal. They go to the lemon chicken restaurant. As Kudo goes to pick up a piece of chicken, Reiko intently stares to see his reaction. Kudo chews it slowly, taking his time before finally conceding that it is delicious, making Reiko happy. Kudo then looks away, maintaining that it's still not quite as good as boiled dumplings. As they finish eating, the rain stops. Reiko goes to move, but steps in a big puddle, making Kudo grab her arm and tell her to watch her step. As they touch, a moment forms where Reiko questions if he's looking for another person in her. Kudo remains calm, telling her he's only looking at her. With that, he lets go of her, leaving her a blushing mess. The day of the cosmetic consultation arrives. Reiko and Yang Ming are at the Hebinuma clinic. Yao Mei is dressed to the nines and has applied perfect makeup, arguing that it would be disrespectful to meet the great Dr. Hebinuma otherwise. In the modern office, Dr. Hebinuma, a handsome and impeccably dressed man, greets her warmly. He asks about her specific concerns, and she mentions the fine wrinkles around her eyes. He asks for permission to examine her face and hands, his touch gentle but analytical. He proclaims her skin quality to be wonderful, praising its texture and vitality. His questions then turn personal: her occupation, her marital status. When he asks about her family, Reiko replies honestly that she does not know, explaining that she has amnesia. Dr. Hebinuma's professional interest becomes visibly more intense. He tells her that while amnesia is beyond his expertise, he can discern something unique from her skin. He explains that the lines on a person's skin are typically a map of their life's history, a cumulative result of experience. Her lines, however, are different. They look less like the product of time and more like simple, pre-existing grooves, as if they were there from the very beginning. He presents a startling hypothesis. Perhaps her lost memories are not lost at all, but rather never existed in the first place. Before Reiko can process this, he dismisses it as unimportant. History, he says, does not matter. The most crucial and wonderful thing is the simple fact that she exists right now in his office. His professional demeanor begins to crack, replaced by an unsettling, almost obsessive fascination. He leans in, urging her to tell him more about her present self. Reiko leaves the consultation mad. That was far more than what she signed up for, and he's starting to look way too much like Orochimaru. But Reiko, unable to speak, simply says, "Let's go home," and drags her friend out of the office. Later, standing at the window of his office, the doctor watches Reiko leave. He decides that makeup doesn't suit her at all. He wipes the lipstick off her cup and places it on his own lips. He whispers to himself, his voice filled with a chilling fervor, that Reiko is so wonderful, it's almost unbearable. In a flashback at a chicken farm in Kowloon, Kudo and Kujirai B receive heartfelt thanks from an elderly man for helping repair some of the old wood. The woman cheerfully remarks that Kudo is a reliable handyman, and the elderly man playfully agrees, teasing her junior colleague about having a demanding senior. As they walk away, Kujirai B comments on how Kudo seems to have a knack for being well-liked by the older residents, clearly happy with how well he's fitting in. Suddenly, Kudo stops in his tracks, experiencing a dizzy spell. Kujirai B, immediately concerned, looks him over and concludes it must be heat stroke, a common but oppressive ailment in the city's warmth. She suggests he rest at her nearby apartment. When they arrive, Kudo hesitates at the door, voicing a traditional reluctance to enter a woman's home alone. She laughs it off, casually dismissing his old-fashioned concerns and assuring him it's fine. Inside, she instructs him to leave the inner door ajar for comfort. She encourages him to lie down and rest, noting the pleasant cross breeze in the room. She offers him water from the fridge, explaining her habit of letting it sit overnight to dissipate the chlorine smell. As he rests, Kudo scans the room and notes its Spartan, impersonal nature. He observes the conspicuous absence of typically feminine decorations like stuffed animals. Looking at her, he's jolted awake when she suddenly asks for his impressions of Kowloon after his first week. He describes it as a fascinating place, but more significantly, mentions the recurring sensation of nostalgia for experiences and sights he's encountering for the first time, a feeling he finds perplexing. Kujirai B reflects on the nature of nostalgia, referencing her earlier comment that it's akin to being in love. She elaborates, suggesting that nostalgia isn't merely a product of memory or the past. For her, it's a powerful, uplifting sense of familiarity with the unknown, a feeling that one has always known a place or moment. The next morning, as Kujirai prepares to leave for work, only to be shocked to see the doctor standing there as well. Kudo is equally surprised, as the man wasn't there a second ago. As the two try to make sense of the situation, their boss, Lee, quickly stands to greet the man, rubbing his hands together and asking if he's there to purchase another property. Lee explains that the man recently found a location for his new clinic. Hebanuma announces his intention to open a second clinic in Kowloon and points to a specific area on a map. Kudo, upon hearing who the man is, begins tapping his foot rapidly, a clear sign of his disapproval. Lee then asks Reiko to begin searching for a suitable property. She pulls up her laptop to start, but the man gives her a grin that makes her visibly uncomfortable, something Kudo immediately notices. Hebanuma says there's no rush, cryptically adding that he's already found what he was looking for. His gaze fixes on Reiko. Kudo, noticing the man's intense stare, becomes visibly tense and steps forward protectively. He tells Hebanuma that if he has business with one of their employees, then he should leave. Hebanuma, unfazed, compliments Reiko's magnificent presence. Kudo, irritated, bluntly tells him to take his pickup lines elsewhere. Lee, flustered by the escalating tension, tries to defuse the situation. Hebanuma pulls a spray bottle from his handkerchief sleeve and sprays it into Kudo's eyes. Kudo screams that his eyes are burning while Lee and Reiko rush to console him. Hebanuma's secretary doesn't even react with surprise. She instead begins advertising the new sanitizing spray from the doctor. As the man gets up to leave, he grabs Reiko's arm and forcibly kisses her. It's gross. He tells her she should leave the boar and be with him instead. As they walk away, Kudo is left groaning in pain. Outside, the well-dressed secretary is surprised that the doctor, a notorious germaphobe, would kiss a woman so casually. The man simply replies, "A snake takes what it wants." Later, she is seen browsing a local shop, her attention caught by an expensive, vintage Japanese-made fish tank. The owner comments on the tank's price and notes that it's a deadstock item, the last of its kind. Seeing her hesitation, Kudo says she should go ahead and purchase it, offering to carry it back to her apartment since it's heavy. She happily accepts. The owner jokes that it must be tough having such a hard-working junior. This brings back painful memories for Kudo, but he quickly hides it, making a lighthearted comment that he's lucky to have such a kind senior. At her apartment, Reiko insists he wait outside while she tidies up, mentioning there's underwear on the floor. Once permitted entry, Kudo smiles. Her bathroom is still the same. He makes himself at home, immediately heading to her refrigerator for a glass of water, only to be shocked it's not there. Reiko yells at him for opening her fridge uninvited, but he makes a quick excuse, asking if he can eat the watermelon he finds inside. As he enjoys a slice, he looks around, noting the lone cute plush doll, another reminder that this Reiko is different. He then steps onto the balcony for a smoke, seeing the image of his wife. Reiko, not noticing his mood, mentions that the room they painted together now has a tenant, a family with a small child. She laments that the freshly painted walls will likely get dirty again. Kudo philosophically remarks that a room naturally takes on the colors of its inhabitants. He then spots the new fish tank and, on a whim, asks for the name of the fish. Just as whimsically, she names the single goldfish swimming within its success. Kudo suddenly leaves without finishing his watermelon. Reiko tells him to come back, but he's already gone. The next day at the office, Reiko presents Kudo with a small vial containing a sunflower. She explains it's a thank you gift for his help, and he asks how often he should change the water. She tells him once a week. Their conversation is interrupted by the boisterous arrival of their client, Xiaohei. Reiko checks her notes to confirm whether the listed apartments are ready for viewing. Meanwhile, Kudo asks why she's looking to move. Xiaohei explains she wants a larger apartment because her current one is overflowing with clothes. Her friend teases her, suggesting she get rid of some, but Xiaohei refuses, saying each item was bought with her hard-earned money, and she refuses to part with a single one. Xiaohei then notices the sunflower on Kudo's desk and calls it cute. Kudo says she can have it if she wants. Xiaohei grins smugly and asks if Kudo has fallen in love with her. Kudo looks unimpressed and asks where that idea came from. Xiaohei explains that each flower has a meaning, and the sunflower means, "I am looking only at you." This causes Reiko to stop and blush, dragging her friend away to view the apartments, leaving Kudo to reconsider what he means to Reiko. Reiko takes Xiaohei to an apartment, but she's unimpressed, saying it just doesn't click. Reiko reminds her this is the 7th apartment they've seen. Trying to broaden the options, asks if Xiaohei has considered moving outside of Kowloon, maybe to Hong Kong Island. Xiaohei firmly rejects the idea, saying she has no desire to leave Kowloon. Just then, Kudo calls with a new suggestion, corner room in a building on Nantong Street. He says he'll meet them there. Reiko is skeptical, remembering she'd previously dismissed that particular unit due to its awkward layout. The apartment is, as she recalled, very small, with most of the space taken up by built-in storage. Reiko points out there'd barely be enough room for a bed and table. However, Xiaohei is instantly smitten. She declares it perfect, explaining that since she's rarely home due to part-time jobs, the small size isn't an issue. Kudo then reveals the apartment's best feature, a rooftop. They all head up to the roof and are met with a breathtaking sight. Sprawling before them is a vast, dense field of sunflowers, all turned in the same direction as if watching them. Xiaohei and Reiko are ecstatic. The group marvels at the scene, speculating that a stray seed must have fallen and multiplied. Standing amidst the sea of flowers, Kudo is visibly struck. The scene shifts again, to outside the juice bar in Kowloon, where Reiko gets her watermelon juice. As she drops her coin to purchase a drink and bends to pick it up, a strange man with long hair and an odd mask beats her to it. But instead of just handing it back, he flips the coin between his fingers before slowly placing it in her hand, bows and walks away. Later that night, at a mansion, Dr. Hebenuma's maids discuss an article from a gossip magazine about the young president of a major corporation. It details a scandal. The president is allegedly the illegitimate child of his father's mistress and was later adopted. They speculate that the boy in the accompanying family photo isn't the current president. The article also mentions that the president's adoptive mother died in an accident. One maid wonders if the president's own close aide might have deliberately leaked the story. Meanwhile, inside his room, Hebenuma is talking to the masked man from earlier, with it appearing that the two are intimately involved. The masked man questions whether the doctor was the one who let the report slip, saying his father must be tired of dealing with questions about his painful past. Hebenuma changes the subject, asking how the mission went. The masked man confirms that the woman in Kowloon was indeed her. He admits there are slight discrepancies, but that her color, scent, and feel were almost identical. He reveals that he also visited Gwen's former workplace and learned that he had been employed there until just 2 weeks prior and now considered a missing person, and asks if the doctor wants to go out for dinner. The doctor declines, saying he has work to do. Hebenuma then gets a phone call. The man on the other end calls him Miyuki and gives an update on his investigation into Reiko, telling him not to rush. Hebenuma takes his towel off, revealing that he is a member of the Yakuza or possibly the Chinese mafia. Meanwhile, back in Kowloon, a different search is underway. Kudo is talking to a rugged-looking man, a fishmonger, trying to find Gwen. The next day, Reiko is smoking while looking out at the field of sunflowers. As she does, a figure calls out to her. She turns to see the masked man from the juice shop. He removes his mask, revealing that it's Gwen. She confirms it's him, and he agrees. She says she has questions for him, pointing out that although they've only met twice, he seems to know her from before. The man confirms this, stating that he knows Reiko very well, including her relationship with Kudo. However, he then delivers a chilling statement. The Reiko he knew is no longer of this world. He stares at her intently and remarks on the mole under her eye, noting with displeasure that even its position is identical to the originals. He expresses deep resentment when looking at her, feeling as though a cherished memory he shared with his friends is being trampled on by a complete stranger. While he concedes a degree of pity for her, acknowledging that she is unknowingly living another person's life, his tone remains cold and final. Before leaving, he instructs her to tell Kudo that he will be coming to see him soon, referring to her as his words shatter her world, contemplating the terrifying possibility that his claims are true, that she is an imposter, and that her life, job, and very identity belong to someone else. When she returns to the office, what happens next reinforces his words. She sees that the sunflower hasn't been cared for. When she goes to change the water, Kudo suddenly calls out to her, asking if she knows he dislikes her. Reiko is silent, but acknowledges it and tosses the flower out, symbolizing the end of their love. That night, she reflects on her existence. She lives in her room, wears her clothes, and works at her job. She comes to the devastating conclusion that the past Kudo shared with the other Reiko, the love he felt for her, is not and can never be hers. Her body grows weaker. At work, her vision starts to fail. While throwing extra paper into the furnace, she drops some, feeling dizzy. Kudo, observing her, calls out that she's spilling it. When she apologizes, he notices her unfocused gaze and comments that her eyes seem to be failing her. He asks if she needs glasses. She dismisses it as blurry vision from lack of sleep. He insists she wear her old pair. Reiko's reaction is sharp and immediate. She adamantly refuses. The tension snaps. Reiko confronts Kudo directly, stating that she is not the Reiko he knows. She fears that even her own habits might be borrowed from someone else, but she declares that some things are undeniably hers. The fish tank she chose, her fondness for lemon chicken, and most importantly, the fact that she is in love with Kudo. Kudo coldly rejects her confession. He tells her she is mistaken about that too. He argues that just as she has deluded herself into believing this life is her own, her feelings for him are nothing more than another delusion. She's hurt that he thinks it's all just in her head. She repeats his words, her voice trembling with a mix of pain and fury. She challenges his assertion. Her questions pour out in a torrent of raw emotion. Would a mere delusion make her watch his every move? Would it make her yearn for his approval? Would it cause the suffocating tightness in her chest? In her emotional state, she stumbles forward, her body lurching, and her eyes go blank. The episode opens with Kudo and Reiko Kujirai seated at a small restaurant. The meal, Reiko Kujirai explains, is a welcome party for Kudo, albeit 2 months late and with only the two of them present, as their branch manager always leaves precisely on time. She cheerfully encourages him to try the peeled shrimp, a local specialty. As they eat, Kudo brings up a rumor he overheard from the old men at the mahjong parlor. There are apparently real plans to demolish Kowloon. Reiko Kujirai responds with a startling revelation. She matter-of-factly informs him that, in a sense, Kowloon has already been destroyed once. The original Kowloon walled city, she clarifies, was demolished in 1994. Kudo is visibly confused, asking what then is the city they currently inhabit. She explains that its official name is the Second Kowloon Walled City, an illegal reconstruction built after the original was torn down. He questions the logic of rebuilding it, pointing out that it goes against the modern era and is, frankly, an unnecessary place. Reiko Kujirai offers a philosophical and melancholic explanation. She suggests it was rebuilt because, deep down, everyone wants to return to something, to nostalgia. It is a place that cannot be erased, she muses, precisely because people refuse to let it go. As the evening wears on, Reiko Kujirai becomes progressively more intoxicated. Her mood turns playful, and she recalls Kudo mentioning a favorite bar he had found. She enthusiastically suggests they go, wanting him to take her. Kudo firmly shuts down the idea. He lists his reasons with the precision of a tired subordinate. It's a bit of a walk from their current location. She has already had far too much to drink, and most importantly, his status isn't that of a regular. As she leans on the wall, her shoulder strap slips down her arm. Kudo, flustered and awkward, points it out, telling her to be more mindful of her appearance. Kujirai looks down, not minding it, but moves to fix it. Then, just as he's about to say something else, she grabs his tie and kisses him. He's shocked by the action, and she reminds him of what she said on his first day, that Kudo is well liked by his elders, her own confession of feelings. Kudo doesn't know how to feel, but grabs her shoulder and kisses her back. The next morning, Reiko Kujirai awakens with a jolt in an unfamiliar room. She sits up, disoriented, to find Kudo sitting there. He greets her casually and asks how she's feeling. He informs her that she's in his apartment. She had fainted on the rooftop the previous night and had been sleeping soundly ever since. She has no memory of this. He asks if she was sleep-deprived from staying up all night. She admits she hadn't been sleeping well. Kudo then turns serious, offering to finally tell her about the person he knew, the original Reiko Kujirai. He begins to speak, but Reiko Kujirai cuts him off with a sharp, decisive refusal. She does not want to hear it. Visibly surprised but accepting her decision, Kudo tells her he is heading to work. He instructs her to go straight home and rest, assuring her he'll make a suitable excuse to their branch manager. Kudo then produces a key from his pocket and tosses it to her, revealing it is a spare key to her own apartment. He asks, with a heavy and knowing look, if she is truly certain she doesn't want to know why he possesses it. She maintains her silence, simply stating that she does not. He tells her the spare key to his apartment is on the table and that she should drop it in his postbox after locking up. The scene shifts to Dr. Hebanuma, also known as Miyuki, walking through Kowloon with Gwen, both in conspicuous disguises. Miyuki is dressed in an outfit Gwen finds strange, and Gwen warns her not to wander off alone. He offers a bizarre rationale. If there is a fake of Reiko Kujirai who is in love with Kudo, then it stands to reason that a potential fake of Gwen would inevitably try to flirt with Miyuki. Miyuki finds the thought of a second version of Gwen being interested in her intriguing, coolly remarking that a larger sample size is always better. Now, they've put an image in my head I never wanted. Their investigation leads them to a specific location. Gwen notes that the building's exterior is unchanged from how he remembers it. However, a small, handmade shelter he had built for stray cats to take refuge from the rain is now gone, with no trace it ever existed. This, for him, is concrete proof that this Kowloon is not the one he knew. Hebenuma points out other inconsistencies. He gestures to a product on a store shelf, one of his own company's products released 3 years ago, being sold here as a new item. Gwen suggests a logical explanation, citing Kowloon's erratic distribution channels, but Hebenuma dismisses it. Gwen relies on his gut feeling as a former resident. The most significant discrepancy, he notes, is Reiko Kujirai herself. While the environment is flawed, she is a perfect copy, right down to the mole under her left eye. Miyuki, a scientist, points out the impossibility of this, stating that clones cannot replicate moles. This revelation makes the situation all the more fascinating and perverse to them. Miyuki articulates the unique horror of it, to be confronted with a perfect replica of a loved one, same appearance, voice, and body temperature, who even professes the same affection, but who shares none of the memories that form the foundation of that love. She asks, could he imagine the utter despair? The scene cuts back to Kudo. Meanwhile, Reiko Kujirai is in her apartment with her friend Yume, as the two have dinner. Yume is happy. She talked to Zaimoe like she said she would and got a new job as a seamstress, allowing her to have guaranteed pay and overtime. Yume then comments on how Reiko looks refreshed and has a newfound clarity. Reiko tells Yume what she has learned, that she is a different person from the original Reiko Kujirai, who is now deceased. Yume is frightened by the revelation, asking if that means this apartment was inhabited by the dead. Reiko Kujirai confirms this is likely the case. She admits that Kudo also seemed to know, but she stopped herself from asking for details. She explains her fear that if she learned the full truth, her own sense of self would dissolve and disappear. In response, Reiko shares her personal philosophy. She has decided to become her absolute self. She explains that this means trusting her own choices and actions in any given moment. Even if a choice leads to regret, if it felt absolute and true to herself at the time, the conversation turns to the mystery of Reiko Kujirai's origin. Reiko recalls Dr. Hebenuma's strange comment about her being someone whose wrinkles seem to have existed from the very beginning. She reflects on how, despite not remembering when she moved into her apartment, she instinctively knows where everything is, as if she were made to fit seamlessly into the life of Reiko Kujirai. This leads Yume to bring up a conspiracy theory she once read online about a secret cloning experiment called the Zirconian Project, run by the same entity behind the massive Gene Terra development. The name, she speculates, is a play on zirconia, the artificial diamond. The thought strikes a chord with Reiko Kujirai. If she was created from the start as a fake, she wonders aloud if it is arrogant for a counterfeit to wish to become genuine. In a gesture of profound empathy, Yume turns off the lights and she points to her own earrings, which are made of zirconia, glittering in the dim light. She admits that while zirconia is a fake created in the image of a diamond, she loves it. As someone who has undergone extensive plastic surgery, she feels a kinship with it. She finds courage in the fact that something artificial can shine so brilliantly. She tells Reiko Kujirai that while many people will always dismiss fakes as inferior, there are also people like her who can perceive genuine beauty in a counterfeit's glow. She asks her never to forget that. The following day at work, Reiko Kujirai is visibly more cheerful. As Kudo is walking, he hears the voices of Reiko and Yume and quickly hides. The two women talk about going to Xiaohei's rooftop to have a small get-together. Yume suggests bringing Kudo, but Reiko doesn't know how to interact with him. Kudo doesn't know why he's hiding. The two get a drink, and Yume suggests that Reiko Kujirai should move out of her current apartment, throw everything away, and start completely fresh in a new place that is entirely her own, not a hand-me-down from the deceased Reiko Kujirai. Kudo is visibly shaken by this idea, but Reiko gently refuses. She explains that she wants to keep the room exactly as it is. Yume is shocked, assuming it is for Kudo's sake, or even more bizarrely for the sake of the dead woman. Reiko clarifies that it is precisely because the original is gone that she wants to preserve the room. She sees the apartment as one of the last remaining fragments of the original Reiko Kujirai's existence. She fears that if the room were to disappear, the woman's presence would be completely erased from the world, a type of obliteration that she, in her unique position, understands and fears on a deep level. Back at the office, Reiko approaches Kudo and invites him to Xiaohei's upcoming moving-in party. The guest list, she tells him, is just her, Xiaohei, and Yume. Kudo immediately declines, telling them to have fun on their own. As he walks away, however, he calls back to her and hands her a wad of cash, telling her it's a contribution for the party. The amount is generous, more than enough to buy a feast. At work, Yume is still thinking about what she's learned from Reiko. Being close to her, given the circumstances, she doesn't want her to live in a dead person's home or live the same life as the original. The party takes place on Xiaohei's new rooftop. To everyone's surprise, Kudo is there, explaining that Xiaohei practically dragged him along. The atmosphere is festive, but it's clear that Yume doesn't like Kudo, as she offers him lemon and not the chicken. Yume, however, once again brings up the topic of Reiko moving, showing her listings for new apartments. She asks for Kudo's opinion, suggesting that a fresh start would be good for Reiko. Kudo remains non-committal, stating simply that if Reiko dislikes her current room, she should move, but otherwise the choice is hers. Reiko firmly states that she does not dislike it and will not be leaving. Later, as the party winds down, Kudo and Reiko Kujirai are left alone on the roof under the light of a full moon. She asks for a cigarette, but he cheekily says he only has the one. She then brings up the topic of the doctor wanting to build another clinic, but it seems he hasn't started at all. But Kudo sharply remembers this being the day he kissed her. She changes the topic, talking about how bright the full moon is. Kudo remarks that the moon's light comes from blocking the sun, but then questions what gives the tower its light. She replies with the optimistic view she has gained from Yume, suggesting that it shines because of the hope and expectations people project onto it. Suddenly, Kudo's demeanor shifts. He grabs the rails, cutting off her escape points, leaning in closer. But as she thinks he's going to kiss her, Kudo blows the air from his cigarette. As she coughs, he tells her she is far too unguarded. As he's walking home, he hums a cryptic, haunting poem about searching for a loved one under a bougainvillea tree, only to be thwarted by the moonlight. The scene shifts again. Kudo is playing mahjong with the old men when suddenly Reiko shows up. Kudo wonders why she's not with her seamstress friend. Reiko reaffirms her name is Yume and says she decided not to go with her today. As they get into an argument, Reiko then turns to the men, asking where their old friend Mr. Chen is. They respond that he's missing today. Simultaneously, Dr. Hebanuma and Gwen are in his office. Mr. Chen questions what this is all about, wondering if they're going to tell him he has bad health or something. But the doctor says nothing, not paying attention to the man. Just then, Miyuki gets a call from his assistant informing him that the man they brought is at the front door. The moment the man enters the building, Mr. Chen vanishes. With this, their theory is confirmed. Gwen expresses his relief. With that, Miyuki wonders if he should call the main Japan branch about Kudo, suspecting he might be a fake. Gwen then asks Hebanuma a critical question. What was the original Kujirai Reiko's cause of death? Meanwhile, Kudo and Reiko are closing up the shop for the day as they walk through the streets of Kowloon. Reiko expresses concern for the elderly man, Mr. Chen, who lives alone. But then Kudo callously remarks that people can die easily, that he could have just died at home or fallen. Reiko doesn't like that he said that. Meanwhile, the narrative back in the office is dancing around the idea of the cause of death for Reiko. Kudo, however, questions her on how she knew that the original Kujirai Reiko was dead. She reveals that Gwen was the one who told her. This makes Kudo stop and ask if she saw Gwen, which she confirms. This connects the two narrative threads, confirming Gwen's link to her past. Kudo then starts to laugh hysterically. Miyuki suspects that Gwen is angry to see the second Reiko and is worried about Kudo. After Kudo is done scaring Reiko with his laughter, he speaks in a low, heavy voice and makes a devastating confession, a truth he has carried alone. He states that he was the one who killed Kujirai Reiko.